It's 1963. A woman stands at a Harvest Gold stove in Akron, Ohio, and without a single recipe card, without a smartphone, without a YouTube tutorial, she is feeding 7 people. The kitchen smells like bacon fat and dish soap and something sweet browning in the oven. She knows 25 things about cooking that nobody taught her from a book. In the next few minutes, I'm going to give every single one of them back to you. Bacon drippings were not waste, they were currency. Every woman kept a ceramic crock or a tin coffee can next to the stove and poured every last drop of rendered bacon fat into it after breakfast. That fat-flavored green beans, fried cornbread, sautéed onions, and basted roasts for the entire week. Butter was for baking. Bacon drippings were for cooking. Wax paper was the plastic wrap of the American kitchen, and it cost 9 cents a roll in 1963. Women used it to wrap sandwiches, line baking pans, cover dough while it rested, and keep cheese from drying out in the icebox. It was compostable, it was cheap, and it did not stick to everything it touched the way cling film does. We replaced it with something worse and called it progress. When a woman in 1965 needed to line a cake pan and had no parchment paper, she reached for a brown paper grocery bag, cut it flat, and traced the bottom of the pan. It worked perfectly. The paper browned at the edges, the cake slid out clean, and the bag went into the trash. No specialty store required, no ordering online, no running out mid-recipe. Knife sharpeners were not common in every household, but ceramic mugs were. Turn any ceramic mug upside down, and the unglazed ring on the bottom is a mild sharpening surface. Draw the blade across it at a low angle, 10 strokes per side, and a dull knife comes back to life. Your grandmother did not have a whetstone. She had a coffee mug and she knew how to use it. Brown sugar turns into a brick because it dries out. The fix takes 1 slice of bread. Lay it directly in the bag or container with the sugar, seal it, and leave it overnight. The sugar draws moisture from the bread and softens completely. The bread goes dry and hard, the sugar stays soft. 1 slice of stale bread was worth more than any store-bought brown sugar keeper. Butter lived on the counter, not the whole pound, but a covered butter dish held 1 stick at room temperature, and it stayed perfectly safe for up to 2 weeks. Room temperature butter spreads on toast without tearing the bread, creams into sugar without seizing up, and tastes richer than cold butter from the refrigerator. Somewhere in the 1980s, we were frightened into refrigerating everything, and our toast has suffered ever since. Celery goes limp in the refrigerator within 3 days unless you wrap it in aluminum foil. The foil lets ethylene gas escape while holding in moisture, which is exactly the opposite of what a plastic bag does. Plastic traps the gas and speeds decomposition. Foil-wrapped celery stays crisp for 3 to 4 weeks in the crisper drawer. Generations of women knew this. Plastic produce bags made them forget it. A loaf of bread gone stale was not thrown away. It was wrapped in a damp paper towel, placed in a 300-degree oven for 10 minutes, and it came out tasting freshly baked. The steam from the towel rehydrates the crumb without making the crust soggy. This trick worked on dinner rolls, French bread, biscuits, and day-old cornbread. Bread boxes kept bread from staling in the first place, but this was the recovery plan. Cast iron was not a trend. It was the pan. 1 heavy skillet could sear a steak, bake cornbread, fry chicken, and go from the stovetop directly into the oven without a single complaint. A well-seasoned cast iron pan from the 1940s outperformed every non-stick coating invented since. Women did not rotate through cookware sets. They owned 1 cast iron skillet for 40 years and handed it down to their daughters. To season a cast iron pan, a woman used lard. Not vegetable oil, not flaxseed oil from a specialty shop, lard. She rubbed a thin layer across every surface, inside and out, and slid it upside down into a 375-degree oven for an hour. The lard polymerized into a slick, almost glass-like coating that nothing stuck to. It was cheap, it was effective, and it smelled like every pot roast she had ever made. Leftover morning coffee went into the chocolate cake batter, not down the drain. Coffee amplifies chocolate the way salt amplifies sweetness. You don't taste the coffee, you just taste more chocolate. Half a cup of cold black coffee in place of half the water or milk in any chocolate cake recipe deepened the flavor in a way that no extra cocoa ever could. This was not a secret. It was just Tuesday. Before a thermometer was in every drawer, a woman tested whether frying oil was hot enough with the handle of a wooden spoon. Dip it in. If small, steady bubbles form around the wood, the oil is at 350 degrees. If nothing happens, it's too cool. If it crackles and surges, it's too hot. She never burned a batch of donuts because she knew to listen to the oil before she trusted it. Rinsing pasta with cold water after cooking was never done, and that is not a mistake. It is a rule. The starchy water clinging to hot pasta is how sauce adheres. Rinse it away, and you have slick noodles that repel every drop of sauce you work to build. Women in 1962 pulled pasta straight from the boiling pot into the pan with the sauce. They knew the water was the glue. We forgot, and now our pasta sits in a puddle at the bottom of the bowl. Paper towels were expensive enough in the early 1960s that a damp cloth lived on the counter instead. A wrung-out cotton rag handled spills, wiped down surfaces, dried hands, and cleaned the stovetop without a second thought. When it got dirty, it went in the wash with the dish towels. One cotton cloth replaced an entire roll of paper towels and cost nothing to run. The women who used them were not being frugal. They were being correct. Roll a lemon on the counter under your palm before you cut it. Press firmly for 15 seconds. The pressure breaks down the interior membranes, and you get nearly twice the juice from the same fruit. Women who made fresh lemonade for 7 children on a summer afternoon did not waste a single drop of citrus. They also knew to microwave it for 10 seconds, but in 1963 they used the counter and it worked just as well. A fork sealed a pie crust better than fingers ever did, and it was faster. Press the tines around the entire rim of the pie plate, and you get an even crimped edge that holds its shape in the oven and seals the top and bottom crusts together without gaps. Women who baked 3 pies for Thanksgiving did not have time for the decorative pinching technique. They had the fork trick, they used it every time, and nobody complained about the pie. Kitchen shears cut everything a knife could and a few things it couldn't. Snip fresh herbs directly into the pan without a cutting board. Cut pizza into slices in the pan before serving. Trim the backbone from a chicken, portion canned whole tomatoes in the can, cut dried fruit into a bowl without it sticking to the knife. Women who cooked every day for decades knew that a good pair of kitchen scissors was the second most important tool in the drawer after the cast iron. Pasta water was not poured down the drain, it was ladled into a cup before draining and saved for the sauce. A 1/4 cup of starchy pasta water emulsifies butter and olive oil into a silky coating that clings to every strand of pasta. It thins a sauce that's too thick without diluting the flavor. Women who learned this from Italian grandmothers called it liquid gold. Restaurant cooks today call it a technique. Women in 1960 called it not wasting perfectly good water. When a woman made garlic bread in 1964, she did not use pre-made garlic butter from a tub. She cut the bread, toasted it, and rubbed a raw-cut clove of garlic directly on the warm surface of the bread. The rough texture of the crumb acted like a grater. The bread absorbed the garlic oil on contact, and the heat of the toast mellowed the sharpness instantly. It took 4 seconds, and it tasted better than anything that came in a plastic tube. A wet knife cuts sticky foods without resistance. Run the blade under cold water before cutting marshmallows, dates, dried apricots, caramel, or any candy that wants to cling to the metal. The water acts as a release agent. Women who made Rice Krispies treats for a church supper in 1961 kept a glass of water beside the cutting board and dipped the knife after every 2 or 3 cuts. No fighting, no tearing, no wasted candy stuck to the blade. A dry bay leaf dropped into a canister of flour kept pantry moths and weevils away. The aromatic oils in the leaf repel insects without affecting the flavor of anything baked with the flour. Women kept a bay leaf in every dry goods container: flour, rice, dried beans, cornmeal. A box of bay leaves in 1960 cost 15 cents and protected an entire pantry through the summer when bugs were worst. There is no modern equivalent that works as simply or costs as little. Eggs came out of the icebox the night before baking. Room temperature eggs emulsify into batter more smoothly. They blend into fat without seizing, and they hold more air when beaten, which means cakes rise higher and cookies spread more evenly. A cold egg dropped into a cake batter can leave streaks of unincorporated fat and dense pockets in the crumb. Women who baked every week knew this instinctively. Nobody needed a food science degree to figure it out. Before applying the real frosting to a cake, a woman spread a thin crumb coat of plain mayonnaise over the entire surface. The oil in the mayo sealed down every loose crumb and gave the real frosting a clean, dry surface that gripped evenly instead of dragging crumbs to the top. Mayonnaise also added a very faint richness to the outer layer. Nobody could ever taste it, but they always noticed the cake looked professionally done. The pasta water had to taste like the sea. Not vaguely salty, not seasoned, like the sea. A tablespoon of salt per quart of water was the minimum, and some women went higher. The only chance to season pasta from the inside is in the boiling water. Once drained, the noodle holds whatever flavor it absorbed, and nothing you add to the surface will get inside it. Women who cooked pasta in the 1960s knew this not from a cooking class, but from the way bland noodles tasted when they forgot. Keeping a grease jar on the stove sounds like poverty cooking. It was not. It was the most efficient flavor system in the American kitchen. Different fats from different meats, bacon, sausage, pork chops, fried chicken, went into the same jar, and over weeks that jar became a concentrated library of everything cooked in that kitchen. A spoonful into cornbread batter, a coat in the skillet before eggs, a tablespoon melted into boiled greens. It flavored a whole week of cooking for free. 25 tricks. Not one of them required a recipe card, a specialty ingredient, or an app. They required attention, and the women who knew them paid it every single day in kitchens that smelled like something real. If your grandmother had a trick she swore by, something she did without explaining it, something that just worked, leave it in the comments. This is exactly how those things stay alive.